again, and welcome back to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David, and what we will attempt to do today is explain how we got here. It's Cinema Wellman's origin story, if that's possible to tell. How did a seemingly normal young person born in New York in 1962 become obsessed with movies to the point where some friends and relatives are worried? That's what we're going to try to explain today. And the origin story is not new to film. Maleficent got one, The Crow got one, Captain America, a bunch of superheroes have theirs, Mike and Sully from Monsters, Inc. So why not Cinema Wellman? Let's go back, if we will. And everybody's a product of their parents. I'm no different. And, we all get things from our parents, different quirks and different interests and things that filter down. And one of the things that I got from my dad was tremendously talented as far as working with his hands, woodworking and carpentry and anything electric, anything plumbing wise, he could do it. He loved being outside. He loved cutting the grass and pruning trees and climbing trees and working with the chainsaw and everything. He also loved driving and taking road trips, and that's what I got from him, the driving and the taking road trips. The rest of it kind of passed me by. My mom, on the other hand, was a phenomenal cook. I got a little bit of that. She loved family overall, as my dad did. That certainly came through. But one of the things that Jean really loved and appreciated was film. And she was a huge movie fan from the start. I remember going through a box of stuff that I found at my grandmother's with my mother. And it was all her scrapbooks, all her movie scrapbooks, and it was her movie magazines that she read as a teenager. And some of these photos of Elizabeth Taylor and Jack Lemmon and some of these other stars that hung on her wall as a teenager. And she would tell me stories about going to the movies when she was a kid. And it's that stereotypical story that you hear about people that grew up in the 50s. And, she was a teenager in the 50s, in the early 50s. And she's one of those people that walked to the theater and got popcorn and candy and a soda and got, a cartoon, a newsreel, and 2 movies for something obscene like a quarter. But she would tell me about that, and she would tell me about the movies that she would see and the friends that she would go with. And my mom was a lifelong movie fan. She didn't have the luxury of having a lot of time to sit down and watch a lot of films. She worked hard taking care of us, and she was a beautician that had a beauty shop in the house. So she was always home with us, but she was working hard, and she never, like I said, didn't really have the luxury of sitting down and watching movies, but she did love them. When she and I would sit down, it was a great experience to sit down and share something that we both really enjoyed. Another movie-related thing with my mom is that starting very early, and her cousin, my godmother, Jo, who lives across the street from the house I grew up in, she and I was texting Jo the other day about, I was putting this together, and I had a bunch of questions about the next thing that I'm going to discuss, and that's the Oscar parties that they used to have. So once a year, and my mom was a social person, but she wasn't a party person. So the fact that my mother hosted a party once a year this has to be something. This has to be something special, and it was, because it was she and Jo and later friends Marie and Marion got together once a year. Probably one of the few times that all 4 of them would get together during the year, and they would have a big party, and they would have food upon food. If my mom's involved, there's going to be food, and there's going to be great food. And they would all have ballots, and they'd fill out their ballot. No matter, some years no one saw one film, and they did it anyway. Everybody was like, "Ooh, Tom Hanks! I like that Tom Hanks. Let's vote for him." Ooh, this person, I saw her dress. I'm not going to vote for that. Anyway, people do that all the time. I love that. And these were going on, these parties. I was as young as 2. I grew up with them. I remember having to go to bed and missing them. I remember my dad worked till my dad had two jobs, and his second job he worked from 6 to 11 at night. So dad would on that night, dad would get home, and it would be like this is like Christmas to my dad. He was like getting home at 11, and there are people doing stuff, and there's food. This is fantastic. Probably one of my dad's favorite nights of the year, even though he missed most of it. And they would fill out their ballots and everything. And I got to go to some of these later on as an adult. One of my favorite stories is I went once, and again, this is in New York, and I went once and went to the party and watched the Oscars with everybody. And then I left at like 4 o'clock in the morning and drove right to school and taught the next day. Movies are different for me. They mean something. It's a connection to people and to other things. It's difficult to explain, but it's one of the things that I'm going to try to explain today. So again, these Oscar parties, and you wonder, it's like, how much of this is something that my mom really, this is something that stuck with her. And well, I'll tell you that she passed in the year 2012, and I have her ballot from that year. So I went through my mom's stuff after she passed, and I was delighted to see that one of the things that I found amongst her belongings were her ballots from her Oscar parties. And later on today, I'm going to look through these and see how her voting actually went. But this was sweet that these were important enough to her that this was a memento that she wanted to keep. So Jean was a movie fan through and through, and with the blood of such a movie fan going through my veins, it's not much of a surprise that I took some of these other leaps in my movie life. It's like I lead two lives. So talk about dreams for a second. Not dreams of what you have for life. Dreams don't come true. Anyway, dreams, like the dreams that when you fall asleep and you dream. So I've had them in black and white. Now, I'm not sure if is that normal? Do people do that? I think people do that. I've also had dreams that had subtitles. So they were in other languages that I didn't understand. And so I had to read my own dream. And then I had one that had credits at the end of it. So the dream ended, the story ended, and the end. And then I'm like, I'm gonna wake up, it's over, and then the credits started coming. Like, oh, all right, hold on, and I'm reading the credits and everything, and the credits are over, and I wake up and I wasn't there. I wasn't in the credits, and I always have thought of that. How on earth? I obviously had something to do with this dream. I mean, I was the creator. I was everything. I was the writer. I was the director, the producer, and I'm not even credited in my own dream movie. Anyway, that's the way things go. So even that, my brain, even when I'm not awake, my brain is like, maybe let's do some movie stuff to keep him entertained. Now, when I was younger, one of the difficulties for a film fan is that there really weren't many places to go other than the theater itself to see films. And a Little Oasis for me was something that was on the ABC network, and that was channel 7 where I grew up, and that was the 4:30 movie. And the 4:30 movie was on ABC, channel 7 in New York, and the 4:30 movie ran from 4:30 right into the news at 6 o'clock. And you figure, well, that's 90 minutes. Are they going to be able to show they can't. They can't show a 90-minute movie in one day and have commercials and such. So what they did was they showed them over a couple days. And the longer the film, the more days it took to show it. You get The Great Escape, you get Bridge on the River Kwai, you're in for the week. And speaking of weeks, I loved what they did. They had theme weeks. I'm a big theme guy. They had theme weeks. They had Spectacle Week, and it was all Bible stories. They had Science Fiction Week, where you'd get stuff like Soylent Green, and they'd show action movies. Action Week, you'd get the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. You'd get all these great, gritty crime. Assault on Precinct 13. These were phenomenal films that really I had no other way to see them back in the day. They were out of the theater, no such thing as anything, a computer even, no VHS at this point, and there were very limited ways in which to see good films that you'd be interested in. My favorite week, of course, had to be Monster Week. It's what got me into the Godzilla thing that I'm into now, which is like a huge Godzilla fan. And they did that, and they did Monster Week. So Monster Week was one of my favorites. In any event, the 4:30 movie, when you come home from school and you'd be like, all right, get the homework done. I'm gonna get right into this. Where Quo Vadis, I think took 2 weeks to watch. It was fantastic, and it was films. It was good films. It was decent films. It was fun, entertaining films. Some I would then actually deem important, and I know that's a difficult thing to get into, but there are some films that are important, and there are others that aren't. Gene told me many times, much to my chagrin, that my first movie was Mary Poppins, and that upset me because I hated Mary Poppins. Another very early, I don't remember seeing Mary Poppins. I remember Grandma Lou taking my sister Vanessa and I to see this submarine movie, and I bet you she didn't even tell Gene that she was going to do it. So this was a submarine movie where the sub is attacked by plant life, some kind of fungus. I tried to find out what this movie was, and I couldn't find it. It's some kind of cut rate voyage to the bottom of the sea, I think. It was fantastic, though. So when you're a kid, though, somebody has to bring you to the theater. And when you're a kid, unless they're bringing you purposely to see a movie that you want to see, you're going to see what they want to see. And if you're age appropriate, you're tagging along for that because it's a movie. So, I did get to see a lot of the funny girl, funny lady, all the funny stuff. Hello, Dolly, the film version of that. Gene took us to the Broadway show. Let's see the movie as well. But as far as going on my own, there were 3 theaters that I had to choose from. I had the Windsor Theater, which was near my house and I could walk to. And I did that as much as I could. And again, this is before I got my license. And then that was the only one that I could walk to. So I had the Windsor Theater, the Squire Cinema, and the Mid-Valley Mall Cinema. And once we started to drive, then I would go pick up Andrew and Donnie or vice versa, and we would all go to the movies together. Lots of movie going. Once Donnie, Andrew, and I smuggled beers into the Squire Cinema. I don't know what movie we were going to see, but we were like high school guys. Man, we're going to the movies. We're going to bring in beers because we're really cool. We're bringing beers to the theater because they don't allow that. Anyway, the 3 of us go in there, and of course, we're really nervous about opening up these beers because we know that we're not supposed to be drinking them in the theater. And then the lights go out and the movie starts, and a little 10 minutes later, the guys a couple rows up from us lit up a joint, so we figured that was the free reign. Crack them open. Here we go. The drinking lamp is lit. Kind of like lawlessness back in those days. That same theater, I believe, the Squire Cinema, was when, during a screening of Animal House, a bunch of classmates of mine went out to the parking lot and they got somebody's car. I forget the kid's name, but his car was a VW Bug, and they picked up the car and brought it into the lobby of the theater. So when we came out of the theater, out of the movie, there was his vehicle in the middle of the lobby of the theater. Like I said, it was lawlessness. It was the 8. No one cared what you did, basically. The Mid-Valley Mall is the other theater, and we always talked about that being the Mall of the Damned because there was never anybody there at any time. But there was a theater there. That's where we saw Chud. If you haven't seen Chud, you should see Chud. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers or something like that. You should see it. Hey, it's October. See all the horror movies you can. Yeah, it's stereotypical, but do it. When I was doing research for this, and again, the blog I wrote that was already posted on cinemawellman.com, I was looking for, is there outside shot that there's pictures of these theaters, and I found pictures of of all three, and I put them on the blog. It's funny. They're obviously abandoned. One has the closed sign up. The Mid Valley Mall picture is blurry, which is very apropos to that that theater. So with the driving comes the drive-in, and the drive-in was even more of a social thing than it was having to do with film. We had 3 drive-ins to choose from. We had the Brookside Drive-In, the Middle Hope Drive-In, and the Fishkill Drive-In. And again, the usual suspects, Donnie and Andrew and me, and sometimes our friend John Nolan, who grew up a little bit away from us, not right with us, but a little bit away, and he made a couple of those. And it didn't matter what was being screened, really. And we went to stuff that we had no interest in because we would, the drive-in was really dominated by what we called the grab bag cooler. And don't do this at home, kids. Do not mix drinking and driving. Never do that. Never do that. Do as I say and not as I did. It's not worth it. That's my little PSA. Back in the day, we did it. It was stupid, and we're lucky that we got away with it. That's all I'm going to say about that. But there was a lot of drinking when we went to the drive-in. Drink at home or drink with friends and get home responsibly. Okay, enough about that. So we would bring the grab bag cooler. We'd get 4 or 5 6-packs of beer, and we'd put them in the cooler, lay them with the ice, lay them down with the ice, and then, of course, we had 4 or 5 really bad 6-packs. So think, beers back in the day that were bad. Hamm's, Schlitz, Rheingold, Pabst Blue Ribbon, Old Milwaukee, like real awful beer. And then we always took we had one premium 6-pack. Budweiser. Back in the day, that's what we thought good beer was Budweiser. In any event, what you'd be required to do is reach into the grab bag cooler and drink whatever you put your hands on. And they were all 12-ounce cans, so you couldn't differentiate any other way, bottle shape, anything like that. And it was hysterical. And the look, I wish I had some videotape, because the joy on our faces when we reached in and came out with a Budweiser that would actually probably make me nauseous if I drank one today. So we went a lot. We went to this one drive-in so many times that we always made the joke that we were given Slim Jims as a gift of like showing up. They gave them to everybody, I'm sure, but we're like, ooh, here we go. We're VIPs here at the drive-in. So that was a different level again, and that was movie, but that was also social. And again, we went all the time. I remember once a screening of The Road Warrior, and we had seen The Road Warrior over and over and over in the theater and over in the drive-in. And the beginning of The Road Warrior cinematically is really interesting. If you haven't seen it, it kind of shows up. It begins with this little, almost a letterboxed thing, the black borders, and then George Miller, the director, like during this one car that he's revving up the last of the V8 interceptors and everything, and it's awesome. Cinematically, it's just beautiful visually, and sound-wise, this assault on you coming at you from all ways. Anyway, I'd seen it so many times that I said, I'm going to see it a different way. So I got out of the car and I walked up the little hill and I laid down and watched the beginning of The Road Warrior laying down in the grass in front of the 40-foot screen. Again, lawlessness back in the day. Different things like what ads, what's next? What made you HBO? My parents, sometime in the early 80s, I don't know what they were thinking, they got HBO. And it's almost like, hey, do you remember going outside? Remember the last time you went outside? Yeah, it was sometime around the 80s. It was the day before my parents got HBO. That's what it was like for me, because for the first time in my life, I've got access to movies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they showed everything. And they showed a lot of stuff over and over. So I saw Blue Thunder, George Segal in The Blackbird, which is a spoof on the Maltese Falcon. Fantastic, really funny. And Missouri Breaks. Those are the 3 that I think of watching over and over and over and over again, because like you turn on HBO and you go, ooh, the Blackbird's on again, and you'd watch it. And then not to mention the stuff that HBO ended up running on after hours. Ooh, indeed. Now, when it came time to choose a college, and I decided that I was going to do something that I have to have a film program. And wouldn't it be fun to major in film and then turn film into a career? Well, I went halfway there because I majored in film. And then I became a teacher and taught for 33 years. So I was overmatched, other than my love for all things film. So I chose a place that had a great film department, and that's Boston University. And I was there from 1980 to 1984. And as I mentioned, I majored in film. Movie-wise, this was a tremendous thing to do because it exposed me to more film-wise than anything else. And yeah, I was overmatched with my major, and yeah, I didn't really make anything out of it. And yeah, socially, I really didn't enjoy BU for half of it at least. But it's all worth it. That's all worth it for me on a personal level because of what I was exposed to movie-wise. We would go to class, the movie classes, we would screen a movie in a theater, and then the lights would come up and we'd discuss it. And then sometimes we'd watch it again, or we'd watch selected scenes, and we would talk about it some more. And I had some great professors. I'm not a big Charlie Chaplin fan, but I had a professor who was like personal friends with Chaplin. I mean, you can't beat that kind of first-person information coming at you. Being exposed to things that I was never going to get at the Middle Hope Drive-In or the Windsor Theater, or actually at the time, even on HBO. The amount of foreign film that I saw, and foreign film movements, Italian neorealism and French New Wave and surrealist cinema and stuff like that. I have a feeling that I wouldn't really have run across a lot of that. So that part was phenomenal about being at BU. And the other part about being at BU is that I not only took film theory classes, but I was making films. And the two films that I enjoyed making the most were the SPC Cutthroat and Psychic Vegetables. Now, the SPC Cutthroat, which if you're watching on YouTube, is right here. This is the film. This is the SPC Cutthroat. And this is how we used to do it, kids. This is film. And if you had to make an edit, you'd snip it and you would tape it together with clear tape. And that's it. That's an edit. And that's what we did. So we had the SPC Cutthroat, and that was one that I did on my own. And the SPC Cutthroat was about a BU student, SPC student of School of Public Communications, and that's what the film school was there at BU at the time. And he is the class lists come out, and he is on a waiting list for this class that he really wanted to take. And so what he decides to do is murder everyone above him on the waiting list. And he murders them in all sorts of different film ways. He strangles somebody with literal, actual film. He slices somebody up with an X-Acto knife, and X-Acto knives were, part of our toolkit back in the day as film students. So I made that, and then somebody in my film class, a friend of mine named Bob Ecker, he made a film titled The Oven Mitt Murders, where he had people committing murders with wearing oven mittens. And so the final project, we had to work together in a pair. So Professor Bluestone says to me, Deline, who are you going to work with? And I was like, Bob and I are going to work together. And he actually went, oh my God, what's the body count going to be like in that one? And we thought of that, and we said, challenge accepted. So we teamed up to make Psychic Vegetables. And Psychic Vegetables, a lot of it was stop motion photography. If you know anything about that, you know that it's painstakingly time consuming because you have to set up a shot, and then you have to stop the camera, and you start a camera, stop the camera, move stuff, start the camera, stop the camera, move stuff, a little bit. And we had, my friend Audrey was killed in the shower by peppers. The peppers shut off the cold water and turn on they basically scald her to death in the shower while the other peppers are guarding her exit. My roommate Mike dies when he takes a big carrot to the eyeball. That was fantastic with the stop motion. We got that great going right into his skull. But we also had our Odessa step sequence where we had the vegetables marching in a military formation out of the refrigerator. And that was tremendous. Now, that might all sound silly, and it was. And we were finding vegetables in my apartment for months afterwards. The roaches and the other vermin probably loved that. But I must say this, I'm very proud, and Bob should be proud of this too, is that Psychic Vegetables was chosen to be screened at the Boston University Film Festival. Not just the best films from this class that I took, but the best films made at BU that school year. And it wasn't like a list of 50 films or whatever. I think there were less than 20, and Psychic Vegetables made it. That was fantastic. One more thing I want to mention about BU and movies is that we had Cinema 700 at my dorm, and that was Warren Towers. And every Friday, Saturday night, they showed movies. And they had a policy about drinking. And that policy was, we don't care if you drink. So every student that went in there was bringing in their 64-ounce bottle of soda. It was, I don't think I've ever seen Pink Floyd The Wall or The Kids Are All Right featuring The Who. I don't think I've ever seen either of those sober. That's just the way it was. College. The next big step was, I know the date it happened. It was June 18th, 1983. Oh my goodness, what life-changing thing. You know exactly the date. What on earth could that be? Well, that's the day that my parents decided to get us a VCR. So, I take this HBO addiction that I have, and now we're going to bring into it the VHS, which means now I can go to a video store and I can rent movies and bring them home and watch them on my Panasonic PV1220, my top-loading VCR with a remote that had a cord. That's right, a corded remote. This was phenomenal. This was a big deal because this was something that allowed me to now go see things that they didn't show us at BU, but they were talking about. Here's this movie that you should see, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote all this stuff down. And again, making lists. It was at BU that I first decided to write down every movie that I've ever seen. That's where I came up with that. And now that database includes close to 8,000 films. And the database has title, release date, rating, runtime, genre, director, country of origin, and Oscar nominations and wins, if applicable. And little did I know when I started writing in a journal, like what movies I watched that day, that it would be something that evolved into or mutated into this very, very hefty database that's got several different pages, and it's broken down by year, and it's broken down by platform, and it's all sorts of stuff. It's a lot. Fast forward through VHS to the world of the DVD, and then things just got even worse / better. Again, watching anything and everything that I could find, and actually, much to Lisa's chagrin, buying every DVD I could really find. I've gotten better. I'm going to donate over 300 of them to the library if they want them. Do you want phone booth? If you want phone booth, email me and I will wrap up phone booth and I will mail it to you. A few years ago, I also decided to see a movie from every country. So I got that project going on. There is a series I have a bunch of cult movie books, including this very good book by Jennifer Ice titled 500 Essential Cult Films. And I also have the Danny Peary cult movie films. So these, I made a list out of this, okay? And that list ended up being about 300, no, sorry, there were 500 in this one book. So it's like 600, 700 of those cult movies. And I think I have about 23 left. Also decided to see a movie from every country in the world. And I'm out of 195, I think I only have 26 left. So I always have these projects going on and I have all these lists. If you ever see a post on Instagram or Twitter and it says it's on a list, it's on a list. I have a bunch of lists. From 2013 to 2017, all of my movie viewing was done by theme. So I picked a theme at the beginning of the month, and then every film that I watched that month had to do with that theme. I did heists, time travel, water, booze, simians, conspiracies, prison movies, remakes, movies with numbers in the title, trains, courtrooms, colors, claustrophobia, did it all. I did all of those. That was great fun. Two things took me away from that. One was I got this idea that I wanted to see 10,000 different movies in my life, and doing that theme watching was watching a lot of things that I really liked over and over, which is nothing wrong with that, and I still sneak those in now and then. But if I was going to see these different films, I really put the themes aside. So that's where I am with that. I'm coming up on 8,000 different films, which is, I think, pretty cool. And the fact that I've kept track of it is kind of amazing. So I've got all these different projects going on and things like that. I once saw all 5 Best Picture nominee films in the same day. That was February 21st, 2009. And that year was Milk, Slumdog Millionaire, The Reader, Frost Nixon, and the Benjamin Button thing. So that was a really fun movie memory. I did the 24 Hours at Wellman that I did a whole episode about. That was great fun. Went to the theater to see Wizard of Oz and went to the theater to see Casablanca and had never seen either in a theater. Saw both of them numerous times, neither in a theater, which is really amazing when you think about it. And Wizard of Oz was one of my mom's movies that I remember her telling me about, with wonder in her eyes, seeing this in the theater when she was a kid. And, I took both of my daughters and Lexi, who's like my third daughter. I took the girls, Hannah and Lexi dressed up. Kids were dressed up. Wicked Witch, Dorothy, all this stuff. It was fantastic. And later, by myself, I went to see Casablanca in the theater. It was phenomenal. It was like stepping in a time machine, going back and seeing movies the way they were meant to be seen, which is in silence, without people yapping. Another all-time favorite movie memory is when Dakota took me to see Jaws. And she took me to see Jaws at the Mann Center in Philadelphia, which is an outdoor venue, and the screen was right there, and then we had an orchestra. Who was it? What were they called? The Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia provided the soundtrack, and I get chills just thinking about this. This was tremendous. This was something that was just, I had seen Jaws so many times. And it is, without a doubt, one of my favorite films of all time. You see the Jaws license plate is behind me. The great white shark there. Dakota made that. Oh, Dakota also made this little merch for me, a little Cinema Wellman official T-shirt. Thank you for that, Dakota. So Dee and I went to see this, and it was, again, this is way up on my list of great movie making experiences. So this is just one of those things that there's always movies going on, and there are always lists of movies. I don't know what I'm gonna do when my Netflix queue gets down to 10. I don't think I'm gonna be able to. You know what? They keep making movies. I'm gonna keep watching them. That's just the way it is. Now, I tried to come up with an answer. when people ask me, like, how can you watch so many, what do you get out of them? Like, what is it? What does it do for you? And escapism is part of it. And movies have always done that. And movies do have the power to take you elsewhere, even for 90 minutes, and have you go somewhere where, if you have any issues that you're dealing with, any difficulties in your own life, you can set them aside and you can immerse yourself in this other world. Even if it's a realistic world and it's a realistic movie, you can lose yourself in it. When it comes to documentaries, I watch as many documentaries as I can, and this is for education purposes, learning about social issues, learning about things like civil rights, things that I didn't know about. And then when you get to screening movies from other countries, being exposed to different cultures and the way life is led in different places in the world. I mean, it's got all of this. And it's also, at the end of the day, it's about creativity. And what you're seeing, even if it didn't turn out well, what you're seeing is a bunch of people getting together and attempting to do something creatively that's taking all of these talents of all of these different individuals and weaving them together to tell a story that's going to keep you entertained, and it's going to keep you many times on the edge of your seat. And that's it. And I love that. I love all of that. And that's, I guess, the long answer to a very short question. All right. So as Sam Elliott says at the end of The Big Lebowski, well, that about does her. Wraps her all up. So if you'd like to, this was my attempt to explain how and what my relationship with film over the past 60 years, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. I hope it made sense. It kind of made sense to me. If you'd like to hop aboard this crazy train, you know what? Feel free. The more the merrier. Join us on the road to 10,000. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Cinema Wellman. You can listen here on Spotify or watch here on YouTube. All you need to do then is search either for Cinema Wellman. Email us with questions, comments, suggestions, anything. That's cinemawellman@gmail.com. Almost forgot. I said I was going to explain the bomb. The bomb. The bomb is our logo because of the fact that on my database, there's the column, the only review column. I didn't do stars. I didn't do scale of 1 to 10. I didn't do letter grades. I simply did thumbs up if I liked it or would recommend it. And I did the old-fashioned Boris Badenov bomb from Rocky and Bullwinkle if I hated it or thought it was garbage. And that's why, since I watched so many things and a lot of them end up being bad, I thought that would be an interesting little logo for us here. All right. And that's it for now. Join us next time. Coming up, future episodes are going to be a look at cult movies. We're going to take a closer look at cult movies, what a cult movie is. And I'm going to come up with kind of a beginner's guide to cult movies for you, which is going to be, if you're interested, which ones should I see? We're going to do that. Of course, we're going to have the September top 10 and bottom 5. And the Halloween week episode is going to be the top 10, bottom 5 Stephen King-based films. So that is coming up. Stay with us and hang in there. And I will see you again next time right here at Cinema Wellman. Until then, take care.
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and jump some of this shit. You're gonna need a bigger boat.